Hello guys, this is Void What Ifs here. This is going to be part 7 of What If Bell was a Necromancer. So, in the last part we left off with Bell destroying the entirety of the Imperium, or, well, most of it, along with his subordinates making an entire flotilla and going to the new continent. In that continent, they discovered the third largest dungeon in the entire world, with the dungeon being 1,752 floors long, or deep, shall I say. And well, they started building a city around it, which is going to be it's going to be the dark side of Orario. And well, enough about that. So, as they are currently going on with the construction, Bell is slowly regaining his mana, which is, well, how do I say this exactly? It means that every single mana crystal, or, well, the crystals which the monsters drop, is being taken to him and he's absorbing the life energy from it. So, yeah, hundreds, well, thousands of crystals are brought to him and he simply starts, well, devouring them all. Now, 2 months later, he is even more powerful than he was before. Before he was about, I would say, actually, yeah, he was about level 30 or so in the power rankings. Currently, he's almost at level 36, so yeah. He jumped 6 whole levels, that is, almost 6. And well, in those 3 months, the Graveguard, since, well, obviously they're the undead, they've been continuously working. And also, the Alliance, that is, let's see, the Elven Kingdom in the last episode, I didn't say exactly how much damage the undead armies have done to both the Kingdom of Odin and also the Elven Kingdom. So, the 100 or so thousand undead which were sent to the Elven Kingdom, yeah, they basically burned down their capital. So, yeah, their capital was nothing but ash. And along with that, the elves lost about 60% of their whole population. So yeah, the Elven Kingdom wasn't even a kingdom anymore. It had so few other elves in it that, well, that is no. Let's see how they say this. So, the Elven Kingdom before had like 800 or so thousand elves living in it, with 100,000 of them being warriors. 80,000 of them went ahead and tried to defeat Bel's army as reinforcements for the Imperium, while 20,000 of them were left to defend the capital and other forts and all that crap. And well, let's see. While the battle was raging on, and while the elves were also hurrying to come back to their own kingdom, the undead were in the process of killing everything which stood in their way. Be it monsters or elves, or humans or any other living creature for that fact. They killed them all, and then the corrupted priests simply started using necromancy on them, and bringing them in even more soldiers to their army. Eventually, all of the elves started to evacuate. After 1 week of that going on, they were able to meet up with the other 80,000 soldiers. Although at this point, the Kingdom of Odin had also sent 500,000 of their own troops to, how do you say it, rendezvous with them. Because, well, the undead which were sent by Bel to attack the Kingdom of Odin had also been, well, busy. Most of the provinces which were, how do you say it, connected to the province where the statue of Odin was before, basically creating a holy shield. Yeah, it was since the shield was completely destroyed, the undead and also the undead monsters, which were basically, how do I say it? Which were just, well, that is the monsters which came from all of the smaller sorry about the guys, from all of the smaller dungeons. So, well, as soon as they left that dungeon and touched the corrupted ground, they died. And then they were resurrected as undead monsters, which had no, how do you say it, control. So yeah, that meant that you had tens of thousands of undead, well, monsters, skeletons and all that crap simply going towards the kingdom of Odin. That's why Odin started making even more fortifications at the border. Although it didn't last long, because they were prepared to fight off tens of thousands of the undead monsters which weren't even properly equipped, nor did they have any semblance of leadership. But when when basically a priest who was turned into a minor lich, and a lich which follows Bel's orders, every single his command, came along with several dozen of the corrupted priests, along with their army of 200,000 undead soldiers. Yeah, they didn't exactly have neither the equipment, nor the numbers, nor the defenses to even try and fight them. All of them were overrun, and soon 7 different provinces surrounding the first province, which was basically the starting point of everything. Basically, all 8 of those provinces had now become infested with the undead. And keep in mind that those provinces were neighbors of the Elven Kingdom. So, as that was going on, the army is now merged together, having about 590,000 troops, against the undead horde, which had about 700,000 or so. Although keep in mind that most of their forces weren't exactly proper skeleton soldiers. They were more like just undead monsters and all that. But still, even though they are monsters, they're still powerful. And the kingdom of Odin, basically the troops which he had sent. He sent about 50,000 paladins, 1,000 or so priests, and then everything else, well, let's just say that he sent also 70,000 men-at-arms. Everything else were militias, which were conscripted. Because, if I didn't say this, and I believe that I didn't, the kingdom of Odin had enemies on, well, all sides. Even though the main reason because of that was Evolos, since they were able to corrupt several other smaller kingdoms surrounding Odin's and basically controlling them like puppet states. And they told them to attack the Odin's kingdom. And because of that, most of the properly trained soldiers were sent ahead to deal with them. And the most elite of them, including their champion, were also sent to deal with Bel, although at this point their champion had returned. Although he was currently being healed at the capital because of the numerous curses which were placed on him by Bel. And well, as all that was going on, we go back to Bel, although since this was 1 week after he had arrived to the new continent, since this is going, 2.5 months into the past, where I left off with Bel regaining all of his power. So, yeah, Bel at that time was still inside of his tomb, eating, that is, consuming all of the magical crystals which were brought to him by his undead horde. While the others went ahead and started building a gigantic wall, along with ports, because they needed a place to have all of their their entire flotilla be stationed at. And after some time, several other fleets arrived. At first, the Michael and all of the other, intelligent of his subordinates of Bel, prepared for an attack, but after some time they realized something. This wasn't an attack. Rather, this was on a trading fleet sent by Evilus. And they also had a guild. Well, basically their own guild, which Evilus has. They have like 100 or so, how do you say it, adventurers which run their payroll. So yeah, like I said, the dungeon which they had found would be perfect ground for them training. And well, Bel accepted that. So as they came there, as the Evilus organization came there, so did basically all sorts of pirates, black marketers, assassins, cultists. Well, basically every single person who you would think to be there, or well, every single person who you thought was evil, he was going to head to, how do I call this city? Let's call it, so we have Orario and, let's call the city, Zilvion. Yes, that sounds good. So, the city which Bel had, or actually no, let's call it the Necropolis. That sounds pretty good, since he's a necromancer after all. So, the Necropolis is going to be the city which they are currently building. And now, going back to the mainland, or the old continent. We currently arrive at the battle which is currently going on. The militia, elves, men-at-arms, paladins, and the priests fighting against the minor lich, which the minor lich's power level is somewhere between level 21 and level 23. So it's pretty powerful. Although there are also some high-level paladins there, and high-level paladins at this point are somewhere between level 19 and level 23. So they're not exactly, how do you say, weak. And as the battle raged on, due to the heavy armor paladins being in the front and the militia having pole arms, pikes and halberdiers, they slowly started pushing the undead back, with the undead losing 3 times as much more troops than the humans did. And well, after some time, that is after the first 3 days of battle, the undead have been, how do you say it, cut by half. So, out of 800,000 troops, they currently had 300,700. That is 370,000 troops they had left. While the humans and the elves had about, I would say, 390,000. That sounds good. And well, the final battle came at the 3rd day, with the humans and the elves rushing forwards. The battle was costly. The humans lost almost all of their militia and the elves lost 46,000 of their own troops. So, even further, they lost even more of their own kind. And basically the elves have become an endangered species, almost. After their once great nation which held about 13 million elves, now only 721,000 were left. So yeah, with most of them being women, children and the elderly. And well, after that battle, the humans simply returned to the, how do you say it, the reef, or the canyon, where the provinces met. So the priests slowly started uncorrupting the land, while the paladins and the other workers, along with adventurers, started making a new wall. And when I say wall, I mean a wall. No gates, no nothing. Just a pure, solid wall made out of rocks and also steel bars. That is not steel bars, but rather iron. So the first 5 meters were made of complete iron, while the other 10 were made out of stone. And also they had several more statues of Odin be placed there, so yeah, a new holy shield was constructed, this time with a full-blown army defending it, along with seven more fortresses and a lot more barracks being built there. So the army, which was always stationed there, consisted of 70,000 paladins, 2,000 priests, and 160,000 men-at-arms. So yeah, that was completely sealed off now. And well, that's how the undead threat on the main continent was finally contained, shall we say. And now, moving back after the time, with the time skip, so basically the 3 months when Bel was completely regained all of his power and even more, he went out and saw what exactly had happened to the city which he had built. And he was pretty surprised. He saw that the city's walls were completely built. And well, Bel was now in charge of his own country, along with several different guilds. The Merchant Guild, the Adventurer Guild, the Thieves Guild, and the Assassin Guild. Those were basically, the Merchant Guild weren't exactly merchants. They were more like people from the black market and pirates, which specialized in trade. So, yeah. Along with some other merchants, which found a good opportunity to be there, although most of the city was, well, filled with the undead, with the main army of the city being a force of, since it was now replenished, about 23,000 Graveguard, and then about, I would say, 60,000 more undead monsters, because the new continent didn't exactly have a lot of people, but it had a lot more dungeons, which nobody had even ever went inside of. And I'm going to be adding something new yet again. The dungeons on the new continent, unlike in the old continent, have artifacts inside of them, which can basically be, let's see, I think it's called a sand cloak. So yeah, a sand cloak which can stop time itself, or at least for a limited amount of time. Legendary weapons like spears, swords, armor, all that crap. So yeah. And well, Bel actually saw that several expeditions had been made into the tower itself. And well, Bel took the top floor, or well, the top of the tower, which was about, I would say, a kilometer in the sky. So yeah, he took that as his own private, how do I say it, well, palace. Although his cultists had also created several, well, churches for him. So there were now dozens of cultists, basically. That is thousands. Fuck, sorry guys. So that there were basically dozens of cultist churches all around his, well, city. And a lot of them were for other evil gods, although the cathedral, which was made, along with the most amount of churches, all of them were meant for Bel, along with a giant statue of Bel, which was made. And well, since I said that because so many people believed that Bel was a god, Bel eventually became just that. He became a powerful, and I mean, if you were to consider him to one of the god pantheons, like let's say the Greek pantheon, so yeah, you have Bel would be at Zeus's level. So yeah, and an extremely powerful god. And well, that's when he slowly started making even more necromancers and users of curse magic. Eventually, after some time, he started expanding the city itself, that being Necropolis. He had expanded it so much that it was now almost at the same size as Arario itself. And well, he had also sent several expeditions to see further into the continent. And surprisingly to him, he found out something which troubled him. He found out that there was a gigantic confederation of tribes. What do you call them? Ah, yes. Tribal confederations, and all of those tribesmen were, well, nomads, like the Huns from our own world. So yeah, although they were numerous in number, so yeah. They were currently out, like, if you were to put their army besides Bell, Graveguard and all that, they would outnumber Bell 21 to 1. So yeah. Their army consisted of several million cavalry. And that's when Bell simply doubled down on making the effort of, well, how do you call it again? Ah, right. He doubled down on the effort of making even more walls and even more castles to defend his own land with. And well, that's when he went down to the port. He saw that several docking areas were made for his own fleets and for the fleets of Evilus and all that crap. And also he saw his own flag being made everywhere. And that flag was... So this picture which you guys see right here. Imagine his... how do you say it? Only his torso, which was pure black. Both of his eyes were red, and you could also see red energy coming from inside of his ribcage. Around him, he had both of his arms, how do you say it? Just like here in the picture. And he was also, above him were hovering all 5 of his books. And each one of those books was a different color. So the book which was about dark magic was in a, how do you say it? In a black color. The book about curses was purpled. The book about, how do you say it again? Alright. Shadow magic was, well, gray. The book about necromancy itself was a pure bone white with a black skull engraved on it. And the 5th book, which was the rule book, which all necromancers had to obey, had, well, it had the head, or well, the skull of Bel, along with his crown. Along with, how do you say it again? A golden scepter with a ruby inside of it, right behind Bel. So that was basically their flag. And well, you can see it everywhere, on their ships, on the Graveguard's armor, all of his soldiers had that, and also every single one of his towers and walls had it as well. Bel was happy about the progress he had made. And also that now about the confederation of tribes, which was further north of his own area. He was a bit fearful of them, so he started trying to expand his military even more. And that's when the scouts he had sent to the west of the continent came back as well. They told him that several other kingdoms and empires from the old continent had made colonies west of there. He had to be wary of them as well. And then from the east, even more of his scouts came back along with several adventurers. Although this time they were openly being hunted by a small force of about 3,000 or so horsemen. Although these ones weren't of the tribal confederation's origins. These ones had more of a Japanese look to them. So yeah, to the east, and a colony which was founded by the... how did I call them again? Basically the Japan of this world had made colonies on the east side of the new continent. So yeah. He had 3 enemies, That is, no, Bel had enemies on every single side. And well, Bel sent about 5,000 of his own grave guard. Using his shadow magic, he teleported them in, basically beside them. So yeah, the force of 3,000 horsemen was quickly killed off. And then, as it was, all of them were quickly resurrected to join the ranks of Bel's army. Now, after he had gotten all of his information, he had realized that the easiest target would be the western colonies of the empires and the kingdoms. Although, even though their colonies were the weakest, their army on the old continent and their fleets were several times larger than his own. So he had to carefully think about his options. So he decided on this. The eastern colonies of basically Japan and China, they had more soldiers and more equipment there than the western colonies, which had just started off. But he also realized that those colonies were far away from their own, well, representing countries, being Japan and China. So he decided that he was first going to take them over. Then the Tribal Confederation, and then after he had after he had almost complete control over most of the continent, or the new continent, he was going to attack the western colonies. And then after that, he was gonna start preparing for a massive invasion of every single kingdom, of every single nation on the old continent, or well, how they called it, just that, the old world and the new world. The new world was where they currently were, while the old world was where all the other older kingdoms were. And anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope that all of you have a nice day or nice night.